What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Review This with the Scene Snobs. I'm Mick Manhattan, the Scene Snob. Thank you for joining us. And today we are talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. That's right, the fifth installment in the Indiana Jones franchise, and it's the first one not directed by Steven Spielberg or written by George Lucas. That's right, James Mangold took over this time around, and this time we see Indy as a much older man, set for retirement, living on his own. There's a lot of turmoil in his life. He and Marion are separated, and lots of other stuff going on with him, and he's just truly downtrodden at this point. The adventures are gone. Time feels like it passed him by, and until he meets up with his estranged goddaughter, one of his best friends and colleagues, who we see in the beginning of the movie, played by Toby Jones. They served together in the war, looking for antiquities and artifacts and such to save them as well. And we get a great opener with both of them. It is very adventurous. In the de-aging visual effects in it were truly fantastic. It was great to see Harrison Ford back in action like he was back in the 30s, but this time it's set in like 1944, towards the end of the war with Germany. And Mads Mikkelsen plays the bad guy in it. One of the main bad guys. He's a physicist who takes on and is looking for the Dial of Destiny, which is Archimedes' dial, which is it's the MacGuffin in the piece, of course, what they're looking for throughout. And it has to do a lot with time. And this is very much the theme of the whole movie, is time. Indy's time has passed him by. He feels like one of the relics he's usually going off to encounter and grab. Nothing is the same as he used to be. He used to be the gorgeous young teacher that all the girls would flock to. Now he's just an old curmudgeon-y guy in the 60s, just living his life, trying to go day by day. And it's a really great place to see him at, because once he jumps back into the action, time may have hit him. He may be older, but it's like a reflex. He understands where he's going with it. And I absolutely enjoyed that aspect of this and kind of where they took it. And the fact that the Nazis are now, it's wonderful to see him take out all these Nazis like he did in the first one. And you got it in the second one too. Like, he would kill Nazis. He would beat them up. He would do what he needed to do. And he did that. And it was very cool to see that action base come back. I missed that in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Now, I'm not a hater on the Crystal Skull like most people are. I get it. And tomorrow on the Scene Snobs podcast, I will be doing that as a fix. And, see if my changes, are to your liking, or if you enjoy them. So I would love to hear what you guys think. So if you want to go check that out, or visit the page after, visit the YouTube afterwards, and it'll be up there as a clip as well. But I just, coming off of that's 15 years ago that movie came out. And for me, I didn't mind it. There was a lot of problems with it and it was definitely not a top tier indie, but I still think it's an enjoyable film. I still think it works on some levels, and I like who Indy is in that. I like Marion's comeback with it. So leading into this, it opened it up for a good story, opened it up for a good reason why Indy is where he is. And when he gets back into the action to help his goddaughter, a lot of it is done out of regret of the past. And that is like the central theme as we go on with it. And I just enjoyed all the way throughout how they did that. And I'm so glad the de-aging makeup worked out, and the de-aging effects worked out really well, because, in The Irishman, things like that, where we've seen it, it looks very awkward. It really didn't. It didn't really miss a step. I liked it. It was well done. The whole train sequence was fantastic. It felt like Indy. It was reminiscent of what we saw in Last Crusade when he's a kid running on the train, but it's more high stakes, more deadly at this point. There's a lot of callbacks to the originals, but in a beautifully subtle way. James Mangold really helped that, and I really like that aspect to this, is when you get these callbacks to older things and things that he's talking about in it, like he mentions, like it all started in a village. which is kind of how Temple of Doom would work. Because Temple of Doom, if you guys remember, is chronologically the first movie. It takes place before Raiders of the Lost Ark. It builds that character in such a beautiful way that leads you into Raiders of the Lost Ark and why he's more open to certain things, certain elements. And it ends all the way up to here. Like, we see a lot of mystical, magical elements to these movies. And starting that off with what happened in his experiences in Temple of Doom really helps you get to the end here, where this is a very mystical, and I love that they play up the mathematics, that science that they're still trying to explain, but still trying to figure out and find all the facts of how it works, but it still works. It's still, why does this work? It still happens, and it plays well. I really liked how they did this. And they even like pulled a switch on the MacGuffin, because it was the lance of Christ, and it was supposed to be the lance that pierced Christ's ribs when he to kill him, when he was crucified. So they're looking for that, but really what it is Archimedes' dial that they come across, and as they do, that pushes things forward quite a bit. It's a great supporting cast. Phoebe Waller-Bridge did a great job as his kind of plucky sidekick in this. Now, we're so used to seeing Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones play the sex symbol, and it's not going to work in this. A, he's married. B, we're past that. Crystal Skull brought us past that. We know that Marion's the only one for him, so you don't want to add that element again. I think that's what made Temple of Doom so odd for a lot of people, is like, we loved Marion. We know he loved Marion. And, because not a lot of people knew that Temple of Doom, when it came out, took place before, because prequels weren't this huge thing as they are now. We saw Willie come in, and she's such a different character who, again, I could talk about that movie all day long. There's a lot of growth there, and I really liked it. But we saw Willie, who's such a different character, and we already loved that he's in love with Marion and this whole backstory here. You just didn't buy into it. You would never buy into a new, and Elsa you kind of bought into, but she ended up being who she was. But so I think that helped the matter. Like, they focus more on the father. And that's what I love, the balance of Last Crusade focused on his relationship with his father, and Crystal Skull focused on he and his relationship with his son. This one is his relationship with time passing him by. And I love that aspect. And I thought adding this goddaughter in here, who is kind of a swindler, kind of goes out of her way to, get the money when she can, or come out on top by any means. I really like that. But she does have a respect for him. She does have a care. But we don't have to worry about all the love interest elements. And that's why I thought this worked, because it's believable. It's a believable type of feel and vibe to it. She has her own sort of short round sidekick to this. He worked in it well, because we've already established that, short round was a thing. Having a kid sidekick works. So throughout this movie, I had a really good time. I really enjoyed it. There were some things that I didn't love. And it really didn't take much away from me. It's characters really that I didn't like. I didn't like Boyd Holbrook's character in it, but you're not supposed to. He's a terrible Nazi. Like, you're not supposed to like this guy. You want to see him get his due. So I think that made that effect more for me. Every time I saw his face, I was like, I can't stand this guy, but it worked. So the things that I didn't like about it really still worked within the framework of what the whole movie was. And one thing about this I will say is, out of all the movies, the very popcorn movies, except for Raiders has a deep story to it. If you go back and you watch Raiders, it's just truly wonderful to see this story kind of enhance everything. And that's what that is in that first movie. It is enhanced by the story. Whereas the rest, the action, the comedy, the characters, they enhance that, and the story's sort of thin. There's some very cool elements to it that add beats to the story that work, but it's not on the same level. That's why none of them are considered on the same level as that first movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, this, I would say, as far as story goes, you got rid of all those little things. You minimize the comedies, the actions, things like that. Like, it still really works. It's still fantastical. It's still great, but you added a story to it. you've deepened it in such a way where we get to see more of the inner of who Indy is and the people around him, and I loved that. So to me, I really think this is the, out of this whole franchise, the second best movie with the best story, if that makes sense. That was just a wonderful ad for me. But let's get to my ranking of this movie. This is the first time this year this has happened, but I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. I absolutely loved this movie. I had a great time with it. Every beat worked. All the characters worked. I loved Antonio Banderas, and actually, I wish there was more of him. If anything, that holds it back because I wish there was more of his character. I thought he just did such a great job in it. They played off each other well. Everything adds up right. James Mangold really kind of tied up a lot of loose ends on this. Again, with the mystical and the fantastical elements to it. We've seen so much, from the Ark of the Covenant to the stones to the Grail to the Crystal Skull, and because all of that was so huge, and I think it works. I think this ending, which I will save for the spoiler segment, this ending where it takes place, what happens, works on so many levels because the attention to detail to everything that they added to it. It truly is just bigger than life and really well done. And I see why it's so, like, when they were shooting this, like they were talking about how big and epic it's going to be, and they did such a great job of it. But if you go back, Crystal Skull, and as huge and sort of crazy in a way that story led to be of what it was, it made this really work. It made this more believable for me. So that's my rating for it, 5 out of 5. I would love to hear what you guys think. I'm going to start talking some spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to know some spoilers, and I'm going to start looking at the comments and stuff, please feel free to come back after you go see the movie. But stick around, talk with me about it. I'll go over some of the things that I like that were spoiler territory in a few seconds. So, all right, let's get to it. Let me put up my little spoiler band there. All right, there we go. So let's get to the comments real quick. James, what's up, man? How you doing, bud? You love that shirt? Yeah, this is an old crazy train, baby. Love it. And that's how it goes. So one of my favorite songs too. So I love being able to wear it. Sorry in advance if I ended up sounding like a bummer in the comments, but I really didn't like this movie. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you and I are very different on this, but that's okay. I think there's a lot of nostalgia built into it. The opening 20 minutes was the only part of this movie that felt like Indiana Jones. You see, I got to disagree with you on that. I mean, yes, very Indiana Jones. Very much worked. But I love that the fact that the story took it to an older place, to, what it was meant to be and where they were bringing it. I really enjoyed that aspect to it. So, like, because he's so much older, we have to sort of forgive that in our minds and have that suspension of disbelief. But I would disagree with you on feeling like Indiana Jones. This felt like an Indiana Jones movie all the way through, and I'm sure you did as well, but like having watched all of them leading up, the progression of the character and kind of where he's at, I really liked that aspect of it. I don't want the same Indiana Jones from Raiders in this movie. We need something different. We need something. He is older. We need to accept that. And I do love that even in the flashback to 1944, this is an Indy we've never seen before. This is a much different Indy. And he was actually sort of darker than I think he was in the previous movies that took place before it, which was the first 3. So to get that back, it just really added that element of he has changed over time. They didn't miss that beat, and I really like that. All right, let's see what else we got. I feel like Crystal Skull, Harrison Ford, Indy felt like he actually wanted to be there, whereas here he's just kind of dragged into the adventure begrudgingly, which to me, I think added that element. I wanted that because, yeah, he was all about it. He went right out with Mutt in that one. And actually, I think that's a detriment to Crystal Skull. I think there should have been a higher stakes. But I'm going to talk about that. You gave me the movie to fix tomorrow on the Seasons podcast. So I'll do that there. But I have ideas for it. But I wanted him to be begrudging. I wanted him to feel so downtrodden that he's just like out. Like, he's beaten. Because of what happens, because we're in spoiler territory now, we can talk about it. And with Mutt having been killed in Vietnam, The world ever changing, where he just feels like he just sticks out, like the adventure's all gone out of him. He lost Marion, which is, on top of losing Mutt, is just drained him. I definitely get why begrudgingly he went into this, and it's done out of regret. It adds to that element of regret and time, and how they kind of coexist together, and how to get away from that regret. So I really just got to disagree with you on that one. I think that he needed to be begrudgingly getting into this, because when he still had to do it, when he still had to escape him and hopped on the horse in New York City and was going through the everything, that's him still being indie. He still knows how to be indie. He just doesn't think that he has a place to be indie anymore. And honestly, that depression's hitting him from where his life is at right now. So I dug that. Phoebe Waller-Bridge was getting on my nerves, not as much as Willie and Temple, but still. See, that's what I liked about it. I think you've got a good mix of like the adventurous side of who Marion is, who Willie was, as in like she's not stuck up like Willie was, but remember, Willie had a great transition in that. From the beginning, Willie didn't want to be there. Willie just was all about the money, and by the end, she's fighting alongside to help free those kids. So I really liked that there was like a heart to her, to Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character in this, and I thought she played it well, and that she kind of came around and found her family again through being with Indy. It's been 18 years for her, so she had a lot of pent up anger towards him for kind of abandoning her through that when she was there for him, when he was there for most of the time. I didn't really get the feeling of her having respect for Indy. She seems like she was really condescending towards him. She was. And I love that aspect, because all she wanted was what she wanted. She wanted to sell that dial, make her money, and that's it. This is who she's become in 18 years of her father having gone crazy and dying, and kind of being on her own. Her godfather had nothing to do with her. She was, and she says it straight out to him. She's like, what is a godfather? What are you? Like, what have you done for me? Like, where have you been? And he hasn't been there. He stayed away. And I like that. And it kind of reminds me, it's reminiscent of like what we're seeing in like Secret Invasion right now with Nick Fury, and how he's just kind of like, where have you been the past 5 years? Why have you disappeared on us? What's going on? We want these, this is like an inside look of why didn't he disappear? Why did he leave? Like, he went off and he just lived his life, and sometimes good, sometimes bad, primarily really rough. So when she steps back into his life, she uses him for what she wants, and then she's out. He follows her. He wants to protect her. So he's trying to make up for it. So he's making up for that regret. And in turn, she's coming around to start caring and realize that he does care about her. I thought that was great. I thought that was a great dynamic. I thought it really worked, because again, you can't have the love interest element to it, especially with the backstory they're giving us. Is just well done. I think if anything out of any part of this movie that really kind of dragged for me a bit was the diving scene, which I still liked. I still thought it was adventurous, still thought it was good. It just seemed a little too much. Like, he's a little too old to be diving, but whatever. Still works. He's Indiana Jones, and I liked how they did it. But yeah, overall, I really did enjoy this whole dynamic. I'm sorry to see Mutt go, but I do get it. And it did add more drama to it, and like that stake of like, he's separated from Marion and they can't get it together. So by the time that comes to the end and she is back, and she says to him, she's like, are you back? Are you here? And it makes sense. Like, he's so detached after Mutt died that she had to leave. She had to get out of there. So I really liked that they kind of came together with this. I love this movie. Thought it was fantastic. I think it's great to go see in the theater, because as soon as those credits roll and you see and hear the Raiders march come on, it's so beautifully well done. I love seeing Saleh again come back. It was wonderful to see them play off of each other and him kind of save Indy at one point. It was just a good time. It had so many elements of all the Indiana Jones movies that really worked for me. And I think it was a great way to end it. It's a lot of heart to it, a good story, and just well told all throughout. So congrats to James Mangold. I think he told a good story ending it out. That is my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I love this movie. I thought it was fantastic, and I would love to hear what you guys think. So if you're watching this at a later time, please sound off in the comments. Go check it out. And head over to the Discord. We'll be talking about it there. Thank you guys so much for joining. James, thank you so much for joining in and talking with me on this. I love your outlook to it, and differing opinions are always fun. So thank you guys again. I'm Mick Manhattan from the Scene Snobs. This is brought to you by Entertainment Earth. If you guys are interested, you should go check them out. They have a lot of great stuff. There's some great indie stuff out right now too. It's topical, and there's some other fun stuff going on. So if you guys are interested, go down in the description below. There's an Entertainment Earth link. It's our affiliate link. If you click on that, it'll really help us go a long way, and I truly appreciate you guys doing it. We also have other things like Skillshare, Noom, BarkBox, and more. So please, if you need any of those links, let me know. Thanks again, and I'm Mick Manhattan from the Scene Snobs, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Take care.